Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. This property is located south of Interstate 14, and it is on the west side of Lee Lane. Here's a zone look at the property.
Okay, thank you. All right, as you can see, this property is currently developed as a detached single-family residential lot. And this property and surrounding properties are zoned agricultural, and that's from an annexation back in 2004. All of this area came in as an agricultural area due to the annexation. The future land use map in this area is kind of complicated because it doesn't have the parcels, but it's between the lifestyle overlay, the residential area, and also the commercial corridor. But this again is currently used as a single family detached residential. The reason for the zoning request is the property owner recently submitted in a building permit application for an addition on the property. The current setbacks for the agricultural district requires a 20-foot side yard setback, and the addition that he has encroaches into that. So staff recommended a zoning change to allow the reduction for the side yard setback. The rezoning would also be an appropriate land use for what's currently there. For the allowable land use, again, the proposed zoning would allow for current use for as a single family residential in the area and setback. The current lot exceeds the requirement for single family one, and the current development meets the required setback. Notices were provided to property owners within 200 feet, and we received no letters of objections or support for this. The Planning and Zoning Commission heard this item at their meeting on March the 21st and recommended approval of the zoning change, and staff concurs with their recommendation. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you, Tina. At this time, we will open a public hearing if anyone wishes to speak for or against this item. Hearing none, we will close the public hearing and open it up for council discussion.
I'd make a motion that we approve the zoning change as presented.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve item 10. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 10 passes unanimously. Item 11, to consider a final plat for Hubbard Branch Phase 1, Section 2, comprising 50.25 acres located north of Holland Road, FM 436, east of Arvel T. Tyler Drive and west of Leon Overlook Trail. Ms. Moore.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. Here's the location of this current phase of Hubbard Branch. As you can see, it's just north of the existing phase. The plat proposes 198 lots for residential development. This is approximately 50 acres. This area is zone single family 3, and the lot size is confirmed to conform to that requirement. Typical sizes are 60 feet wide and 116 feet deep. Water, this is in the city of Belton, CCN. There are 6-inch lines proposed throughout the residential areas. There was a water model done for this area back during the preliminary study, and it shows a couple of different line sizes. There's a 12-inch on Hubbard Branch Road, and on the collector roads, there's an 8-inch line. So there is an 8-inch line on OT Tyler, and I apologize if I have this on OT Tyler to serve where the school site will be. For sewer line, this is also in the city of Belton wastewater CCN. Again, the residential lots will have a 6-inch water line. The commercial or collector roadways also have an 8-inch water line that will extend to the BISD school. Applicant previously constructed a lift station and a force main that extends from the subdivision to the wastewater treatment plant. That will serve all of phase 1, including this section. Access for this subdivision is through the existing collector roadways, which is Leon Overlook and OT Tyler Drive. And that is from FM, I apologize. That is from 436 and Holland Road for both section 1 and section 2, which consists of 375 lots. That was prior to our amendment to allow for 3 access for a subdivision exceeding 100 lots. But there are future phases for the subdivision and future accesses off of Holland Road as well. The streets that are proposing here, this was all approved with the preliminary plat. Most of it is collectors, Overlook, Leon Overlook, OT Tyler, and Settler Oak are collector. Well, the 2 are Collector Road, and Settler Oak is a local street, but it's built to collector standards. They have 60 feet of right of way, and the bigger collectors, Leon and OT Tyler, have 37 feet of pavement with curb and gutter, and Settler Oak has 36 with curb and gutter. The other streets are all local with 50 feet of right of way and 31 feet of improvements. And there are sidewalks also proposed on the collector roads, because this is also adjacent to the school site. Settler Oak also has a sidewalk, 5-foot sidewalk proposed. Drainage plans have been reviewed by staff for Parkland. The applicant opted for payment in lieu of dedication, and the approximately $40,000 will be coming to the city. The city plans to partner with BISD for a joint school neighborhood park in this area, and the fees collected will go toward that neighborhood park. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys have. I don't see the developer currently.
Sorry, what was the last thing you said?
I don't see the developer here, but I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions or comments from the council? Good to see Mike Morgan here from the school district. Thank you all again. That was a wonderful groundbreaking ceremony last week. You all did a bang up job. Great to have all those kids out there excited about their new school. Any comments or questions from the council? Do I hear a motion?
I move we approve agenda item number 11 is presented. Sorry.
Second.
That's right. I take that was.
Oh, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve item number 11. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, item 11 passes unanimously. Item 12, to consider a final plat for BISD Hubbard Branch comprising 15.992 acres located on OT Tyler Drive, north of Holland Road. Ms. Moore.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. This property is located just west of the Hubbard Branch Section 2 area that we just looked at. This is a 1 lot, 1 block subdivision plat consisting of approximately 16 acres for the elementary school. You may recall the zoning change was approved for this back in September of last year, and the proposed meets the area requirements required for the agricultural district and the SUP that was approved. For the water, this is also in the city of Belton CCN, and the 8-inch line is available on OT Tyler to provide service for this development. For the sewer line, this is also in the Hubbard Branch area, and the developer for the Hubbard Branch will be extending an 8-inch wastewater line to service this development. For street, again, there is a memorandum of understanding between BISD and the developers of Hubbard Branch to do some offsite improvements to support the development of this project. So for the streets, the Hubbard Branch developers will be constructing OT Tyler to provide access to this. Also, there is a traffic analysis that was done, and that's being reviewed by TxDOT and our city traffic engineers for approval for improvements onto Holland Road 436, and that's to grant access for both the subdivision and for the school. Adjacent street include OT Tyler and Land Grant, which is just on the west side of the school. Both are classified as local collectors. Per the approved Hubbard Branch preliminary plat, they require 60 feet of right of way, 37 feet of pavement, curb and gutter. The construction of OT Tyler will be provided by the Hubbard Branch developers. And Land Grant is anticipated for the future with phase 2 of Hubbard Branch. And that will also be constructed by the developer of the Hubbard Branch subdivision. For a sidewalk, a 5-foot sidewalk is required on both OT Tyler and future Land Grants. Drainage has been reviewed. There is an on-site detention pond that's proposed for the school that would be privately owned and maintained by BISD. There is, again, a memorandum of understanding because there is limited infrastructure at the site at the current state. So the Hubbard Branch developer and the school have agreed for some improvements on there. There's conditions of their improvements that was reviewed and approved by the school district yesterday. That again is for some of the offsite improvements, the roads, the wastewater, and improvements to Holland Road that will serve the school. The memorandum of understanding is also necessary to facilitate the issuance of the building permit prior to the infrastructures being in place for the school to be constructed. There is a condition that talks about the certificate of occupancy cannot be issued until those improvements are substantially completed. With that, the Planning and Zoning Commission heard this at their meeting on March the 21st, and they recommended approval of the plat with staff comment letter that was provided. And also, again, the condition that a C of O cannot be issued until all offsite improvements needed to serve the school district are completed, inspected, and substantially completed by the city. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions for Ms. Moore?
The question is about the traffic in the road extension. It says that it was reviewed and then it says it was still being, the TIA was still being evaluated.
That is correct. There were review comments provided after the initial review. So we're waiting for that to be resubmitted, and that's part of the conditions of the staff letter of.
So if it comes
comments.
back that, I'm just curious which domino needs to fall. I mean, if the road has to move because of the impact, then why would we, I'm just, would the current review require us to potentially move the road if it came back as some negative response?
The current review is for improvements to Holland Road 439 as far as turn
Just-
lanes. So
The
that's,
state road, not our road.
that's correct. So
So
will
if they
not,
say no. I guess I'm just,
most likely turn lane or something of that nature to help accommodate turning traffic in. And so there's been dialogue with TxDOT and with the developer, with the school district about
so
what's going to be provided.
I just was looking for the famous words of the location of the word of the road is approved, not under review.
well, with TxDOT, there's a scope of work that was
Yeah.
submitted to TxDOT for their approval to see what type of improvements they're looking at. And TxDOT has approved that preliminary portion of the
gotcha.
scope of work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Other questions or comments on item 12? Do we hear a motion?
Move we approve agenda item number 12.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item number 12. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, item 12 passes unanimously. Thank you, Tina. Consider a final plat of Woodland Cottage Addition compromising 9.4323 acres located at River Fair Boulevard, the southwest corner of River Fair Boulevard and Trinity Drive. That's item 13.
And thank you again, Mr. Mayor. Final one. This property is located off of River Fair Boulevard. You might recall this one, the rezoning application from last May. What they're proposing is a one lot, one block for development of a multifamily development, which is going to be a senior living complex. That complex consists of 66 units with private utilities and private internal streets. The lot exceeds the minimum requirement for the multifamily zoning district. Construction plans have been submitted in, and the setback requirements are current, meets all of our standards. For water, there's an 8-inch water line that's available on River Fair Boulevard, and the applicant can just tap into that. All the internal lines will be privately owned and maintained. For the wastewater, there's an 8-inch line that's on the north side of River Fair Boulevard. So that requires an extension to get to the site. The applicant will be required to bore under the existing roadway because there are existing improvements there. Again, the internal sewer lines on this property will be privately owned and maintained. Here is kind of an outlook at the development. The streets are 26 feet wide to accommodate for fire access, and they will have an access easement on that. The sewer line is coming in from across the street on River Fair Boulevard to be bored under the roadway. There is a private detention pond that's proposed that will be owned and maintained by the developers. All right, for street requirements, River Fair Boulevard is classified as a minor collector, requires 60 feet of right of way, 37 feet of pavement, curb and gutter, and a 5-foot sidewalk. The improvements for the street is already currently in place. The developer will provide a 5-foot sidewalk adjacent to the proposed development. There are no additional perimeter street improvements required for River Fair Boulevard. And again, the internal circulation shows a 26 feet access easement for a fire lane. Drainage plans have been reviewed and again, the on-site detention is proposed and will be owned by them. Parkland fees, the applicant has opted for a fee in lieu of dedication. And they will own approximately 13,000 for the 66 units that they're proposing, and fees collected will go toward Quail Meadows Neighborhood Park. The Planning and Zoning Commission heard this at their meeting on March the 21st and recommended approval. And I will be happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Thank you, Tina. I assume seniors, there's several of us up here who would qualify. Is that correct?
No.
Looking your way. Pictures out here. Any questions or comments on item number 13?
I do have a question about the parkland fee. With Quail Meadows being across Lake Road and this obviously being not somewhere you put a playground, is there any other use or need for those funds anywhere in that immediate vicinity that it could be used for?
Again, there isn't any parkland over there right now, so we look for any that's already established within a mile from the development. In this case, that would be the Quail Run area. If there was a dedicated neighborhood park that's adjacent within that parameters, then that would be used for that.
Just wasn't sure if there was anything sidewalk or connectivity related that it could, but that was just my question.
Tina, would you go back? I know the folks downhill, if you will, or downstream from there were concerned about the adequate drainage and control of runoff. Would you show us where that pond is going to be, please?
It is going to be toward the southeast corner of that property.
Where is that in relation to Starbucks?
Oh my goodness, Starbucks is off of Main. Starbucks is east of this property.
Down River Fair Boulevard. Yeah, so down that way.
Right towards Main. That's on the right. You keep driving, you pass the theater. You pass, come to churches and
Right here.
Starbucks at the cross of the creek and churches to the north.
All right. It's within walking distance for senior citizens was my real
It
question.
is.
Okay.
Well, and it's right next to they can get a pass right there to Scott and White Pharmacy right there. Back,
All right.
We'll catch a movie.
catch a movie.
That's right.
Pharmacist.
Take care of all your business right
Get a
there.
caramel latte.
Any other questions
I
or
move to
comments?
approve agenda item number 13 is presented.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve agenda item 13. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item 14 to hold, thank you, Ms. Moore. Item 14 to hold a public hearing and consider an amendment to section 49.8D of the City of Belton zoning ordinance regarding supermajority requirements of 3/4 vote of council members required when the zoning change is opposed by area property owners. It's been recommended that we postpone this until at least April, and we will need a motion to do so if you all so please.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second to postpone item 14. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item 15, to hold a public hearing and consider adoption of an ordinance amending chapter 21, article 4, hotel occupancy tax, section 21-46, definitions of the code of ordinances to amend the definitions of a hotel to clarify that short-term rentals are subject to hotel occupancy tax. Mr. Rogers.
Mayor and Council, last meeting, we added a section to the License and Business Regulation Code to add a section about short-term rentals. The ordinance tonight modifies the taxation code to match, we changed the definition to match the state version of a hotel, and it clarifies very plainly that short-term rentals applied must pay hotel occupancy taxes.
Questions for Mr. Rogers?
Penalty for not paying your tax?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Penalty for not paying your tax?
Well, and under the hotel occupancy, that taxation, we can shut you down essentially. And then there's fees and fines and all that kind of stuff that you'd end up paying.
You know, it was hard to locate or identify the short-term rentals. I hope there's an easier way to ensure the tax is being paid.
Yeah, that's gonna be our challenge.
I'm glad we're cleaning up our policy or whatnot. Will we approve the item?
Second.
There may be some issues with that moving forward. Sorry, excuse me.
Take that back. At this time, we'll open the public hearing for discussion on item 15. If anyone wishes to speak for or against this item, please step forward. And hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and go ahead, John.
And Mike, the only reason I asked that is because I know after looking at the hotel motel tax revenue, there were only a couple that were paying
Correct.
out of all located in the city. So
That's correct.
may have a challenge ahead, but I move we approve agenda item number 15.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve item 15. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the item passes unanimously. Item 16, consider authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with General Motors and Don Ringler Chevrolet for the dealer community charging program, which will allow the installation of 2 level 2 electrical vehicle charging stations on city property and in the downtown area. Mr. Ellis, Chief Ellis.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm joined by Donnie Ringler of Don Ringler Chevrolet, and we're going to tell you about this exciting new program General Motors and Don Ringler have. Start off by letting Donnie tell you a little bit about the program that General Motors has brought to them, and then we'll talk about how we can implement it here in Belton.
Thank you very much for having me.
Donnie, could you give your address, name and address for the record, please, sir?
1740 East Amity Road, Belton, Texas, 76513.
And thank you for being here.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Last year, in an effort to spur infrastructure growth of level 2 chargers for electric vehicles, GM developed the dealer community charging program. And had I known I was going to have to speak in public, I would have kept my mouth shut. Just kidding. The dealer charging program was developed to help GM and EV dealers make EV chargers more accessible in our communities. The goal is to deploy up to 40,000 level 2 chargers at key destinations in communities across the United States. Most public chargers are level 2 and serve a different use case than DC fast chargers, which are typically for quick top-ups at low dwell time locations like on I-35. Basically, the program as is on the screen, each dealer has the ability to request up to 10 chargers from GM. General Motors pays for the EV chargers. The local dealer, being us in this case, pays for the pedestals, cable management, the network and maintenance, and a warranty up to 5 years. And the site host, which in this case would be the city of Belton, would pay for installation, permitting, and electricity. And I'm sorry if I.
Oh, that was
if I took
perfect.
A couple of slides.
No, I'm glad you did. I'm gonna start bringing him along more often.
I'll keep my mouth shut again.
Thanks, Donnie. We, a team of us looked at where would be a good location. One of the first things we did was get with Encore and figure out where we had 2-phase power. And much of the downtown area has 2-phase power. So we're recommending installing 2 of the charging stations, which is 2 chargers each, a total of 4. One of the recommended locations is next to the Whittler Shed there at Penelope and Central in the highlighted yellow area on the screen. Second location will be at our library. We're in the yellow area, possibly in the area we have for a food truck. That's all going to be depending on how we actually are able to lay out that the electricity when we actually trench that. But this is our 2 proposed locations for installing these. We would be responsible for the installation cost and then the base electricity costs and then the usage. Basically, each of these locations will require a meter. A base meter charges about $40 a month. The actual electricity cost is based on the usage. Gets into a very complicated process that Casey Simpson from Encore tried to explain to me. But if it gets regular uses, it could be somewhere around $230 a month per meter. And it could be much less than that depending on how often it's used. There's no way to know that until we see how often it is used. Installation cost is about $10,000 per site. And we currently have a pending grant through American Association of Retired Persons to possibly pay this cost. If not, we would look at other sources such as capital project funds or possibly leftover ARPA funds. We do have the ability to recover some of these costs, and General Motors uses a company called Flow, as many other charging services do, to manage the actual charges where individuals pay for the charge time. They use their actual app and many times their car. They do that through their car. They recommend a $1 to $2 per hour charge for level 2. We're recommended to start at $1, so the city would be reimbursed quarterly on that usage. And then some of the benefits, certainly they're universal chargers, so they're not specific to General Motors. And even learned through this process that most Tesla owners have the adapter to plug into the universal charges. These are not rapid chargers, as you heard, so they could take people anywhere from an hour to 2 hours to get a charge, depending on what level their car is when they plug in. So the idea is getting more visitors in the downtown area, and they spend time in our shops and our restaurants during the charge time. And it definitely puts Belton on the EV map. This is the picture up there is from the Flow map. And the Belton locations right now are the Expo Inn and Suites, and then some of the other ones that you see. If I zoomed in further, they wouldn't be quite on Belton. Don Ringler and Johnson Brothers are 2 other locations that are nearby. And then be happy to entertain your questions or go back through anything we just covered.
Questions from council members?
The only thing I have is just clarification of language. I noticed on the GM Flow, it says normally between $1 to $3 per kilowatt hour, but then on our recommendation, it just says $1 per hour. Or it's kilowatt hour.
Okay, it is a kilowatt hour, yes.
Wasn't sure if you charge 2 hours and pay $2 kind of.
No.
I don't think we'll ever recoup it that.
And
way, so.
that's a confusing thing in here, at least was for me, because they talk about kilowatts and they talk about kilowatt hours, and they're different.
Well, I think it's a great program. Glad to partner with Don Ringler and Chevrolet especially. The only question I had, other locations, these are usually at the back of the lot or further away from entrances and whatnot, so that people can park, the mall's back rows charging, Bucky's back row. I just was curious why we're putting it up on the front, right there at the corner.
One of the reasons a place to put the meter, and that the Whittler shed gives us a location to put the meter, is in essence why we chose that spot. Instead of having a meter, having to put take possibly even another parking space to put some bollards and then stick a meter out in the parking lot. It gives us that place. And then the library, we're still going to evaluate the better location. There's still some thought that a food truck may be desirable there with the activity going around the depot and all. So that's why we've not just jumped on that. So that site still needs to be evaluated. We'll be bringing the power from the alley behind the library between there and Miller's is where the source of power is. So that one still is subject to change, but around the library would be the location.
And is there signage that really makes it helpful? So if somebody just doesn't park there, that it would be mostly available for chargers?
Yes, sir. We would have some EV charging signage, but most EV owners use their cars and their apps to let them know where charging locations are.
The spaces are usually painted green.
Okay, so if you needed a charge, you wouldn't just find somebody parked there that's wanting a convenient parking place.
That could happen.
That you would, but
Is that can we restrict the parking?
We could.
that's the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of the point.
And that is something we can do if we start getting individuals parking there when they should.
Because they're really convenient
They are convenient.
at those 2 spots.
Yeah, so a handful of questions. So first one is, I noticed it says 2 level 2 chargers, and then you said it showed 4 on the last. So is a level 2 charger for 2 vehicles, or is a level 2 charger the type of trickle that's just a long-term thing? So
it's level 2 chargers. It's a charging station that has 2 chargers on it. So
Gotcha.
for 2
So
vehicles.
2 level 2 chargers for 4 vehicles.
Yes,
Gotcha. Duplexes versus single family.
Exactly.
So, all right, so.
In
all
the
right.
terms we can understand.
Yeah, so.
Looking similar to that right there.
Yeah, okay. All right, so the second question was regarding parking. I think if we're going to do this, we will need to have a parking ordinance. And that needs to go with this. If not, then people will park in it and then you spend all this money and not used. So I think we need to consider a parking ordinance update to allow for treatment of EV spots similar to what we do with handicap or something,
Certainly.
right? So I think that's something, I don't know what it should look like, but Dan,
I agree.
brings up a good
Mhm.
point. The other one is when it comes to putting these in, it's possible we're going to see more and more of these. And with the downtown area wanting to be that's more electricity downtown. We've got a lot of poles with a lot of wires going everywhere. But if you look at the old post office, you look at the old Carnegie Library, you don't see any poles and wires because it's buried. And so if we're going to be looking at places to put meters and all that stuff, if we go with the underground utilities in a section, not all of downtown, but if you just say across from Cochran, Blair and Potts, you just trench that whole thing, you drop your power underneath, you allow for multiple meters that could be underground. I think that'd be money well spent. And start coming up with a plan of coupling burying utilities with EV, because there may be some incentives to help pay for infrastructure that we can improve downtown and improve accessibility, walking, riding bikes, whatever, by getting a lot of those poles and wires. So anyway, those are some general thoughts.
Yes,
with that.
Yes, sir. We will evaluate how the current parking ordinance is written.
And if we charge $1 or $2, just general numbers, you could get $500 or $600 a month per spot, which is not a bad if it costs 200 maybe.
If they're used regular, and then we can evaluate our actual cost, which typically is less than $1. They did recommend one of the flow reps and people at General Motors that Donnie corresponded with. Some cities have tried to, charge $3 and $4 and $4.50, and they had no success.
No, just have a good parking ordinance with now you get to pay to park too.
Yeah.
So you get to pay to park and pay to charge. So double your money.
Yep.
So one of these days we'll get, pretty much everything's going to parking apps. So you don't have to have these big stations around anymore, just a sign with an app. So we may want to consider that. Domino 3 or 4. Thank you. It's
Any other
awesome.
comments? Do I hear a motion?
I move we approve item number 16 as presented.
Second.
Motion and second to approve agenda item number 16. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously.
Thank
I want to really thank
Thank you.
Donnie for contacting us. I had been talking to Sam for the last year and a half or so, just thinking about how we might accomplish some of this. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, Donnie gives us a shout out and says, there's some money from General Motors. Would we be interested? And we were. So we really appreciate you, Donnie, and your dad and everyone involved for keeping us in the loop and helping us out here. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Anytime we can take some money from GM.
Yeah.
There you go.
Item number 17, consider authorizing the city manager enter into a professional services agreement with Casberg, Patrick and Associates for engineering services for water and wastewater improvements to serve Belton's former Rockwool site. Mr. Bates.
Yes, Mayor, Council, appreciate be able to present this item to you. So this has been, I think, in your purview for a few years now, as to some developments that we really want to do at the Rockwool site that would ultimately, what we hope may spur some development in that area. So that kind of takes us to, I can come back to this in a little bit, but we had a grant that we submitted in late fall 2021. Joel and the team worked on that, and we were successful. So it was with the EDA. We requested $2 million with a $500,000 local match grant, and we were approved for that. And the OPC for the project that you saw before you was at that 2.5 million. So that kind of, once we got word of that, we celebrated briefly, and then it was kind of kind of get into action with really ultimately at this point a design. Some of the stuff that we'd done before was preliminary, just kind of figure out the scope and that kind of stuff. And so this kind of then kickstarted that project with us. So we put up, because it was a federal grant, we had to do some of the procurement items that go through with that. And so we did an RFQ. That went out in January of this year. Deadline was February. And then we only received one. We had a couple of calls and some interest, but we received one statement of qualifications, and that was from Casper Petrin Associates, KPA there. With there only being one, we had to reach back out to the EDA just to make sure they were kind of cool with that. And they were. They gave us permission to proceed with that. I think just generally with that, it's a very complex site. It's a brownfield site. And so KPA has the expertise to kind of get that done. And so that's why we're proud to go forward with them. There's a bit more of a breakdown in this in your staff report, but essentially the proposal for the fees, there's quite a few elements that go into both basic and special services through that for a total engineering amount of $354,000. Just to quickly kind of touch back on the main project details, just more for maybe people in the room, just to be aware of. This is really trying to offload a lift station that we currently have on Taylor's Valley. If you imagine all the wastewater on Taylor's Valley, it seems crazy. You can see the treatment plant across the road, and yet it all goes all the way down to Esco, around Popeyes, back through the Shirtel Bend, and kind of comes back on that way. This is a chance to redirect that almost the way it should be going, and kind of fall in that way. So this gravity pipe, 3,000 feet of wastewater line. There's 1,000 feet of 8-inch water line. Again, extending these utilities to and through the Rockwool site. Again, hopefully you entice some developments of business with once that's there. And then there's also a proposed lift station. So we do offload one very old lift station for a newer lift station that will basically force main that back into the sewer plant. So that's just the project details. I skipped over that at the very beginning, but that's that. So we do have myself, we have Rick in the building tonight as well. We also have Joelle as part of the grant. So any questions we can help answer, please do let us know.
Questions or comments?
It's good to take the stuff down the right hill.
Yes, definitely.
So this is great. I'd make a motion that we authorize the city manager to enter into the professional agreement for this project.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve agenda item number 17. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the matter passes unanimously. And thank you, Rick. That sounds like a great project, and it all runs downhill. At this time, we will adjourn the regular meeting and we will reconvene into executive session pursuant to the provision of the Open Meetings Law, Chapter 551, Government Code, Vernon's Texas Codes annotated. Mr. City Manager, we want to go next door.